So step one for this, I'd say, is to gather the information. And maybe I'll call that step A, because it's not really doing anything yet. So this number is the amplitude. I know it's -3, but remember amplitude is only positive. This is going to go up and down 3 from the midline. But we're going to remember the minus because it's going to flip our graph. The period is 2 pi over b. The b is the coefficient of the x outside the parentheses. So 2 pi divided by 1/3. Division becomes multiplying by the reciprocal. That's 2 pi times 3, and that's 6 pi. There's our period. Since our form for the horizontal shift is x minus c, this must have been x minus a negative pi, so the shift is going to go to the left pi. And since we can pretend that this is plus 0, the midline is at y equals 0. B is to graph, and let's see if this order makes sense to you. The first thing I'm going to do is look at the midline. And so the midline is y equals 0, so the graph is still going to be centered on the x-axis. The second step I'm going to do is the amplitude, so I'm going to go down up and down 3 from the midline. The third thing I'm going to do is do the horizontal shift. The horizontal shift is to the left pi. So I have a cosine graph that's upside down or flipped, moving to the left pi. So I'm going to move, cosine is normally this, the flip looks like this, and I'm going to start this to the left pi. So if I call one box pi, this is going to be negative pi, and I'm going to start my cosine graph here at a low point instead of at a high point. And then my period, the fourth thing I'm going to graph, is 6 pi, so this is 1 pi, 2 pi, 3 pi, 4 pi, 5 pi, 6 pi. It starts and ends at the same place. 6 boxes or 6 pi away. And I think I'm ready to go. Halfway between 6 boxes is 3 boxes. 1, 2, 3. So that's where the high point has to be. And halfway between 3 boxes is 1.5 boxes. And that must be the middle points of this graph. So now I can draw my graph through these 5 points. Well, if this is negative pi over 3, this is negative pi, this must be positive pi, so halfway is pi over 2. 1 pi over 2, 2 pi over 2, 3 pi over 2, 4 pi over 2, that's 2 pi. 5 pi over 2, 6 pi over 2, 7 pi over 2, that's the 1/2 between here, 8 pi over 2, 9 pi over 2, 10 pi over 2. Do you hear it? 10 over 2 is 5 pi. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 pi over 2, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22 pi over 2. Well, 22 over 2 is 11 pi. So for those 2 periods, I have to mark 5 points per period. For the second period, this shares as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you can count, you can get all the numbers quite easily. Let me go back for a second. I neglected to talk about the domain and range. All this thing goes forever left and right, negative infinity to infinity. This goes down to -3 and up to 3, and it gets there, so I include it with brackets. So for B, we have a sine curve. So there's the parent function. And midline, well, this time this graph does move up 1. So the midline is now y equals 1. I'm going to talk about an amplitude of a half. So here's my thought. If I let every box be a half, I can describe both. So 2 boxes is 1. There's our midline. And then our amplitude goes up 1 box and down 1 box, and I'm calling 1 box a half. So it goes down to a half from 1, and it goes up 1 1/2 or 3 halves to the top. Now to get the amplitude, be careful. You need to first factor the 2 out, separate the amplitude from the shift. So if I factor the 2 out, 2 times x, still 2x, and 2 times what is going to give me pi over 2. And I hope you know that's pi over 4. And that's how we factor the 2 out. So that the b value is 2, period is 2 pi over b, it's 2, so our period is going to be pi. And our shift is going to be pi over 4, positive or to the right pi over 4. So I'm thinking, let's let every box on the x-axis be pi over 4 so I can clearly represent that shift. So 1 pi over 4, 2 pi over 4, 3 pi over 4, 4 pi over 4, 5 pi over 4. If the period is pi, 1, 2, 3, 4 pi over 4, that's one period. Here's the beginning of sine, here's the ending of sine. I have pi over 4 and 5 pi over 4, which is pi apart, or 4 pi over 4 apart. So if I shift it up 1, there's our midline. And then if I go halfway between the 2 middle points, there's the middle point. And then halfway between those 2 points is the high point, and halfway between these 2 are the low points. All you have to do is cut things in half, and then in half again. Okay. So all I have left to do is to label the x-axis a bit more. Well, this is 1 pi over 4. This is 2 pi over 4. But do you see a half here? So it's pi over 2. 3 pi over 4. 4 pi over 4. But do you see 1 or pi? And then if I keep going for the next period, if that's 5 pi over 4, this is 6 pi over 4. That reduces to 3 pi over 2. 7 pi over 4. Leave that alone. 8 pi over 4. That's easy. It reduces to 2 pi. And look, 9 pi over 4. Just count one at a time. And you have 2 periods here completely labeled.